Alright everyone, welcome back to the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be talking about lessons that I've learned in Galaxy of Heroes that have made me a more successful player. What lessons can you take away from this stuff, tips, tricks, whatever, that will allow you to be a more successful player, that will allow you to have a more enjoyable Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes experience. So go ahead guys, smash that like button, leave your comments, let me know your thoughts. Let's give a shout to the channel members for just continuing to support me. Thank you guys. Starting to get back on track. It's slowly but surely. Thank you for keeping the faith. Thank you for being a part of this amazing community. I love you all so much. So again, these are lessons that I've learned in SWGOH, trying to share them with you guys. Let me know, is there any that I left off this list that you've learned while playing the game? Alright guys, here we go. So lesson number 1. So you'll hear me say this a lot. You know it's skill when luck becomes a habit. Now this is not just some cocky saying that I used to throw out to everybody when I'd play COD against them. There's actually a lot of truth here, particularly in a game like SWGOH where there is 1000% elements of luck. Like, you are a fool if you don't believe that luck exists in this game. Just think of the current Datacron with Jedi Master Kenobi, Commander Tano. If your Commander Tano isn't faster, which character she decides to force leap on your team, that's luck, right? What if she decides to force leap your JMK? Now you're going to be in a 5-on-4 situation. Like, there's definitely elements of luck to this game. But there's a lot of it that's just overcome with skill that, you know what, I'm not going to use the mirror match. I'm going to use a counter that I know will work. So there's elements like that you just need to be aware of, right? So that's one big part of it. It's just, in PvP, that's where a lot of that, okay, they targeted this person, so now this has to happen, right? Some of that time, and that's where I kind of say, Grand Arena, for example, it's like 90% skill, 10% luck. There's an element of luck that you can't overcome, right? That, hey, Maul completely demolished my Fennec before I could get damage immunity, right? Now you have to look and say, well, was that skill? Or, again, there's, you could argue it to the cows come home. But you get the idea, right? That there's an element of luck that you're just never going to be able to overcome. But a lot of this game is skill. One of the best examples that comes to mind is modding. Everybody always says, oh, so-and-so got lucky with mods. That's just a lucky mod. That's just a lucky mod. If you really asked that question of me, I would tell you that modding is just as much skill. In fact, modding is a lot more skill. Knowing which mods to increase and which ones to not. Knowing to buy this mod, or knowing that, hey, I have this mod sitting here that I can eventually gear up, right? Knowing the modding, knowing that investing resources into this mod will pay off or won't pay off, that's a skill. So when you see somebody like Justin or me or Oliver in the Discord and we're kind of constantly showing these great mods, what we're not showing you is all the mods that we purchased and failed. We're just going to show you the successes. So we're not necessarily getting lucky. We're just pulling that slot machine so many times that, yes, we are winning, but there's a method to our madness. There's a skill to it that we know that we want to invest in mods that have the stats on them that we want. So that way I can place it on multiple different characters if it doesn't do what I want it to, right? That on, this mod here, I rolled, the health, offense, good speed. If I roll a lot more health or offense, maybe I'm slapping this on somebody like Wampa and, moving a faster mod to CLS. Those are the kinds of things where I say that, luck kind of takes a backseat to the skill involved. Now, obviously, there is a ton of luck in mods, right? There's luck. Hey, did it get, here's a great example. Let's go here and sort by speed. Where is the one I have on, there's one of these I have on a Gungan. Hold on. I want to show, just how insane of... there it is, right? So I got 5 speed rolls, and I have 19 speed. That's just pure... there's just... I mean, that's bad luck, right? But, that's just pure luck. That, it rolled, very low speed here, whereas this mod up here has 4 rolls and 21 speed. That's the luck that you can't... you can't make that up, right? That's just the way it is. But... the argument I'm making here is that you do this enough and you're going to get those mods that are faster simply because you've spent enough time doing it. So yes, There is a skill to it because you've done it enough times, you know which mods to look for, which ones you want to invest in. That's where the skill comes into play, and the luck is just, is it rolling the speed, and is it giving you the good rolls? So, yes, like, this is absolutely this horribly cocky thing that I love to say, but there's a lot of truth behind it in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. If somebody's constantly doing a battle and you're like, oh, that's lucky, maybe you kind of look at it and say, well, there's actually a lot of skill involved, and they just make it look like there's luck. So, just want to throw that out there, guys. All right, next one, ask your officers. The amount of times that I get players who start building something, and one of the big questions I got asked, and what spawned this one maybe, let me backtrack. What spawned this question was, one of my channel members asked me, hey Phil, should I build Inquisitors or Gungans right now? My guild's about to get into Rise of the Empire. We've also got the new raid. What makes sense? Ask your officers. One of the most important resources in this game is the officer core of your guild. They will tell you so much about the direction that they want you to head. Now, and I say this as an officer, take everything they say with a grain of salt, that their first thought is probably going to be guild first, right? And I'm gonna use, like, I got burned by this once where I had a guild officer who was all about, like, hey, we need Geonosians, we need Watch Shards. So I built my Geonosians, and I had a Wat Tambor sitting in my account for months before I ever did anything with him, because I had no way to use him. But I had to build my Geos. I could have used that Gear 12 on another team and potentially improve my account a lot more, but no, I need to farm Geonosians. So ask your officers, hey, what would be the best thing to help the guild? And maybe you're thinking, I'm going to build Bo-Katan Mandalore, and your officers say, well, we'd kind of like you to build Jar Jar because of the new raid, and, that'll help you in GAC, it'll help you here, and it's going to help us in the raid, we kind of need that. But if it's, hey, should I build Reva or Bo-Katan? Well, maybe we want you to build the Gungans, and you're like, well, doesn't make sense, right? Like, just ask your officers. Don't be afraid to kind of push back a little bit, and at the end of the day, you farm what you want. Just, be aware that your guild might not like it if you're building, Coruscant Underworld Police because you feel like it, and they need you to build, something else for the raid or operations, right? But ask your officers. Like, this is such a great question, just to, what's going to help the guild the most? Hey, I'm thinking of this. What can I do? Like, anytime I'm about to equip a Relic 8, I ask the rest of my officers, hey guys, is there anything we need for operations, or am I good to just throw this on who I want? Because I don't want to make a decision that could potentially hurt the guild, and we're in need of a Relic 8 something. So ask your officers. Always, always ask. And again, with a grain of salt, and not all officers are like that. Some are much more understanding of what's going to be best for your account, but there are definitely some who will just tell you to do what's best for the guild, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it might not be what's best for your account. All right, next, you can always take gear off. Or you can always take gear off. You can always add gear. You can't take it off. This is something that I think I preach all the time. Everybody always asks, why don't I have more Relic 8s? Why don't I have more Relic 9s? It's because I've recognized that once that gear is on there, it's done, right? There's no unequip button. Like, I can't take this off. I can't move that Relic 9. This Grief Karga, like, I can move him up, but I cannot go back down. It is stuck on him permanently. This is something that is so important to understand, and it's why I get so cautious about equipping relic levels, is because I can always go back and make that character a higher relic. But if I go and make my Bo-Katan Relic 8, I can't take that off of her. And especially now, you think about with the Duel of the Fates Assault Battle, where it's going to require a Relic 9 for Kenobi, Padawan Kenobi and Master Qui-Gon. If I was over here ripping Relic 9s left and right, I can't take those off now. So now I've got to go put in additional work to get Relic 9 on those guys. But now that I've kind of got it saved because I wasn't really in need of it, now I can put it on those characters and not really worry. So just bear that in mind, that yes, like at some point you may need to add that gear that, my, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, I was noticing that Relic 7 really wasn't good enough for him. Made him Relic 8 and I've noticed the difference. But up to that point, it took me a little bit, right? It wasn't like right away, oh, Relic 7 isn't enough. It just slowly got to this level where I was like, you know what? He's not surviving long enough. I'm not doing enough damage. I need to bump him up. Similar situation with, Rey as well, where I kind of was looking at it and saying, Relic 7 really isn't cutting it. I need to Relic 8 her. So that's when you can kind of add that gear. But if I'm in need of a Relic 9, I can't take it off of JML. And that's why we say be a lot more hesitant when you equip that gear, and you're going to do a lot better in this game. All right, next. Listen, guys, always be farming ships. I don't care if you need that ship immediately or not, farm it. They take an immense amount of time to farm ships. Ships are the most time-consuming farm in this game. They're, low drop rates. They're not always accessible. Like, it's miserable. It is a miserable experience. The thing you should be doing at all times is farming them. I don't care if you don't need Kyle Katarn's ship, farm it. I don't care if you don't need the Marauder. I don't care if you don't need Aiden's ship yet. Whatever it is, always be in a state of farming ships. You will thank me much later down the road. I can tell you that there are players in my fleet arena who did not farm the Sith ships because he didn't need Sith Assassin. He didn't really need Sith Bomber. And you know what ended up happening? Leviathan dropped. Guess who was ready because he had all of his Sith ships farmed? This guy. Meanwhile, there were players in my fleet arena that were not prepared for that, and because of that, they lost big time because they couldn't beat Leviathan fleets. So always be farming ships. By the time that you get later in the game, your goal should be that every ship you own is 7-star, right? Like when you look, like my ships, I don't have any ship to farm because I keep up with it, but I will personally tell you that you always want to be farming them and get to this point. Because once you're at this point, then you can switch over to farming gear. You can do whatever else you want with those crystals. But you gotta be farming ships constantly. It is a massive, massive part of this game. And it's gotten even better with changes to the Galactic War Store that I will be covering in another video. I did want to cover that. I just haven't got a chance to make something about it yet. So, always be farming ships. And then finally, there's always a bigger fish. And this applies in so many different ways. Like, there's always somebody who's better than you. There's always a bigger account. There's always someone with better mods, right? But it's, in a way, it's me saying stay humble. As much as I was bragging at the top, right, that, it's skill and luck comes a habit. No, stay humble. Like, just recognize that there's always going to be somebody who could probably one-up you. So, be humble. Don't be afraid to ask that question. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Like, even as a content creator, I have people that I ask advice for all the time because I recognize that they may have an opinion that's much more valuable to me. I ask Agnard stuff all the time because I recognize that his opinion is very important, and especially because he and I do not think 100% alike. So we can disagree on something, but both of our minds are in that same place of this is what we think is best for your account, and that's why I really like his advice. So recognize there's always that bigger fish. And even more than that, like just going into like your fleet arena. And, like I look at like just two of us here, for example. So me and the dude here, we're both climbing with Profundity right now against all these Leviathans with some guys here who've got like full Relic 9 fleets, right? Cotman's got Relic 9 Sith Assassin, Relic 8. Like, there's always going to be somebody who's going to find a way to, either sneak around or be that bigger fish, right? There's always that person who, is going to find those ways. So I don't want you to get like, how do I say this? Don't get caught up thinking that because you did something, you're the big bad wolf. There's always that fish that's going to come around, and even if it's smaller, but it's more agile, and it can fit into those little nooks and crannies that yours can't, right? Like, just, I need you guys to kind of stay humble and recognize that either there's a bigger fish or there's a smarter fish, and that will allow you to be a lot more successful in this game is when you just kind of know your role. If you ever heard the Kevin Hart stand up where he's like, stay in your lane, right? And he was talking about, finances, and it's the way to my bank account is set up. Like, that is so true to this game, right? That like, stay in your lane, don't go, I don't go in the group chats with, the big accounts and I'm like, I have 11 million galactic power. I'm better than you. And then, Fury goes ahead and drops 13 million on me like it's nothing. Like, that's the kind of stuff, right? So those are some lessons. I don't know. Maybe this was just me rambling, but I think there's some good stuff in here, guys. You let me know your thoughts. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I will see you all in the next video. Cheers, my friends.